Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to explain why Roger Stone's sentence being commuted. So President Trump is going to commute, or essentially grant clemency. Trump implies he's ready to grant clemency to Roger Stone. Could be this evening. Trump could commute Roger Stone's sentence tonight. 56 minutes ago, New York Post. Fox, Trump expected to commute Roger Stone's sentence days before prison term set to begin. Okay. He was not charged. Nobody was with conspiring with Russia. Nobody was. Is Roger Stone this honest, wonderful, good, pure human being? That's up for debate depending on, your viewpoint of Mr. Stone. Did he work with Russia? No. Was that a fabricated, absurd fantasy of Democrats? Yes. So, why shouldn't his prison sentence be overturned? Why shouldn't Michael Flynn be vindicated? Why shouldn't Carter Page get something from the United States government for all the grief and headache and money he's lost? I think it was even like he had a relationship that was ruined because of this. I mean, it's just, what Democrats did was they wanted vengeance, retribution. They lost. They were scorned because their own corruption. They cheated. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign in disgrace. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign in disgrace. Again, Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign in disgrace. And that is really... That's the basis of all of this. For 4 years, Bernie Sanders, if he had any spine or backbone, could have simply said, hey, the Russians didn't cheat me. Actually, it was Clinton and the Democrats and DWS. But he didn't do that. He said, I got a small favor to ask of you. Give me $1 so we can talk about Medicare for All and how much better it is and not do anything about it. Because there's no Medicare for All bill that Trump vetoed or that the Senate blocked, because there was no Medicare for All bill that passed the House, because Democrats and the million to 4 million sub pundits who push Medicare for All know very well that when Clinton runs, they don't know Clinton's going to be the nominee, but Hillary Clinton's going to be the nominee. When she runs, all the Medicare for All people are going to then say, you know what, we were never Biden, but we're going to be for the first female president. So this is the MC Breed election. Ain't no future in your frontin'. That's all they do is front. And that's the entire left. They pretend, they talk a big game, they're, outraged over everything, but when it's their side that writes, horrible things, they ask for forgiveness, they demand empathy, and they get it. But anyway, getting back to Roger Stone. Roger Stone, through puffery and statements that weren't true, tried to make it seem that he was he was a big part of the whole DNC emails, and he tried to make it seem that he was one of the central figures in the 2016 election. He wasn't. So he tried to basically say he had input into whatever he said that basically put a bullseye on his back. So the Mueller probe and everyone, all the scorned liberals on the Mueller team, because that Mueller probe was composed of only people who had the utmost contempt for Trump. The Mueller teams despised Trump. The whole Mueller probe was a nonsensical, irrational, unconstitutional. Because just because you're allowed to form a special counsel doesn't mean that you should be able to form a special counsel on a fantasy. Where is the special counsel for Clinton's email servers with top secret intelligence on them that Robert Gates and Michael Hayden state were almost certainly hacked by the entire planet? Where's that special counsel? Where's the Uranium One deal special counsel? I mean, Russia got 20% of U.S. uranium capacity. at one point. That's exactly why all of this is taking place, to divert attention, so the wonderful I'm with her crowd can feel good about themselves after they lost miserably. So then they can say, well, we need to see Trump's tax returns because he might have done something wrong. But when you have quid pro quo, obvious money flowing into a foundation run by both Clintons, and then beneficial treatment taking place, they say, well, you can't prove anything. With Trump, it's always the suspicion is enough proof. With Clinton, it's always, even if you have suspicion, you can't prove anything. And Comey said there was no intent anyway, so what they always do is, we investigated, we found nothing. They never investigated. They don't know how she transferred classified information onto servers outside of the United States government and SAP intel outside of the United States government. But anyway, Strzok, if James Comey and Strzok and Clapper and Brennan kept us safe all those years, we're in a world of trouble because the entire planet has whatever Madam Secretary had on her servers, according to Michael Hayden and Robert Gates. But anyway, former defense secretary and intelligence chief that worked with President Obama and Clinton. But anyway, he didn't work with Russia, so why should he go to prison? What they did is they got these people on corruption charge or obstruction of. They got these people on, oh, you lied to the FBI. Well, we don't have the 302s. Oh, well, you obstructed justice. Yeah, but there was no crime that was to begin with. The United States government is moderately to highly confident. The United States government is moderately to highly confident that Russia even hacked the DNC. Look at the ODNI report. There is no reason why Russia would be afraid of Democrats. Zero reason. Zero reason. Okay? There's a zero reason. You had Putin and Bill Clinton meeting. You had Putin and Bill Clinton meeting at Putin's home. This is according to Newsweek and The Hill. This is documented. This is documented. Do you think they care? What I say is documented by, reputable sources. Then in 2014, when Russia invaded Crimea, what did they do? What did President Obama do? Nothing. Putin is not afraid of Democrats. Then you know Clinton's going to be nominee, and it'll happen, and I will have made the biggest political call of all time. She's the only chance they have. Clinton is the best candidate they have. They would get obliterated with Biden. They have a chance with Clinton. She could become president. If President Trump retweets a million, things that he shouldn't retweet, which is, absurd retweets where he doesn't hear a person saying something that is, horrendous, and he accidentally retweets something, he could lose the election because then Democrats, the media, President Trump is on pace and on track to win decisively over either Clinton or Biden. But Clinton has the chance because she could be the first female president. It's the centennial of the 19th Amendment, all of these things. Biden is a placeholder. The fact that they're going after Roger Stone, that they went after Roger Stone, or Michael Flynn, or Carter Page, or George Papadopoulos. Okay, George Papadopoulos should be reimbursed for everything he went through by the United States government. This was a fantasy and a hoax perpetrated by people who were scorned, who basically wanted to fall back on something if they were to lose. So they did for 3 years. That wasn't election interference, by the way. So isn't that interesting? They can investigate Trump, and that wouldn't be election interference. But if President Trump wants to look into all the shady dealings of Biden or the Bidens in the Ukraine, then that's election interference. Isn't that interesting? And yet they still didn't even have any evidence that he withheld military assistance because President Zelensky himself of Ukraine stated there was no leverage. President Poroshenko, prior to President Zelensky, stated there was no leverage also. So they made up everything. They got a bunch of academics, or they got, people who came out of the woodwork, and oh, how courageous. Everyone's just courageous person if they oppose Trump. There's nothing inherently virtuous pertaining to opposing Trump. Nothing. There's nothing virtuous You have to actually oppose a policy. You can't just oppose him. You're not opposing Trump if you're saying, well, we're going to investigate his ties to Russia, because that was a rumor, essentially a rumor that Clinton literally purchased from a Steele dossier that was compiled with one Russian intelligence official and other Russian officials. So it's pretty unbelievable. You look, ladies and gentlemen, and Trump could commute Roger Stone's sentence tonight, report says. President Trump was expected to announce as early Friday that he would commute Roger Stone's sentence just days before a longtime political advisor was due to prison to serve 40 months. 40 months for what? They say witness tampering, obstruction of justice. This was predicated, the entire investigation was predicated on a fantasy. They never worked with Russia. The Facebook ads. Okay, any person who says Facebook ads or Twitter bots that they've never seen influenced the 2016 election is an absolute fool. Not one person looked at Facebook ads and said, I am going to vote now. I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton. Now I will vote for Trump. Not one American, not one person in any swing state said, I am going now because of the Twitter bots and because of the Facebook ads. They've done something to my heart and soul. I am going to now vote for for Trump. I will no longer vote for the first female president ever. I used to really like Clinton, but now I do not because of Facebook ads. Nobody ever said, not one vote was altered because of a Facebook ad. Not one. And if the claim is that, well, I'm sure there was, we need data and evidence. You can't just simply say, oh, I'm sure some votes were altered. We need to know how many. How many votes were altered? Because all we heard, ladies and gentlemen, when Bernie Sanders was cheated by Debbie Wasserman Schultz was, well, the votes were in. She just got more votes. No mention of the media blackout regarding Bernie Sanders or the debates being held on days when nobody saw, or the passing of notes to Democratic officials, or the whole bunch of the emails saying let's paint him as an atheist because it'll be easy to win, or the emails proving that it wasn't fair or neutral. No mention of that. So, look. What Roger Stone did, he kind of made his bed, because what he did was he made it seem that he was on the, he was in the know about a whole bunch of things that he just, fabricated. Now, to Democrats and to people like Comey and Clapper and Brennan and Mueller, that's red meat. That's low-hanging fruit. Oh, you already admitted that you're part of the DNC email release and all that stuff. So we're going to go after you. Then when the truth comes out, which is that he didn't know anything, because they didn't find anything. They didn't find anything regarding him conspiring with Russia or him being part of any DNC email release. The United States government doesn't even know who was responsible for the DNC emails. They say Russia, but that's based on a CrowdStrike assessment. So CrowdStrike hacked the DNC. Russia hacked the DNC, but when asked, because the FBI didn't look at DNC servers. So we don't even know if they're highly to moderately confident if you look at the ODNI report. And then when the House of Representatives interviewed the CrowdStrike CEO, he said, well, we have no concrete evidence, but this is what we think happened. It doesn't matter. The DNC emails proved that Bernie Sanders was cheated. The standard by which they judge Trump is not the standard by which they judge Clinton or anyone else. Clinton's going to be nominated because she's literally the only chance they have. If they go with Biden, they don't get the popular vote. But by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the popular vote is going to be almost as important as the Electoral College. if they lose the popular vote and the Electoral College, Democrats, because they're counting, look, even with all the cities and urban areas and population centers, because most of the country lives within large cities, even or large city areas, even with all the Democrats have the major population zones in the country. They only got less than 3 million people more than Trump. And then they've championed that forever. That's like their biggest claim to fame. But they also forget that Gary Johnson won't be there, taking 4.5 million voters away from Trump. Then they forget that Kanye West has the birthday party, who will take millions upon millions of votes away. Some from Trump also, but mainly from Democrats. Then you have the fact that Trump is outspending Democrats. Then you have the fact that Biden, everyone knows you're talking about a person who looks and acts like an exhumed body, who communicates like a cadaver that got Botox and plastic surgery. Everybody knows that this person is one fry short of a Happy Meal. Okay. So, the only reason they're propping up Weekend at Biden's is because they just have such contempt for Trump that you could put a top hat on like a crocodile and then say, oh, well, this is the reincarnation of Abraham Lincoln, and he's going to go up against Trump. We're going to vote for him. Look at the crocodile with the top hat. And they'd be like, well, this is viable, because they view Trump to be a monster. And it only has to do with his personality. It has nothing to do with his policies. Okay. Like any policy that they obsess over, within months, he already reversed that policy. So yeah, it was horrendous, but he already reversed that policy. And the cages were built by President Obama. Well, how do we know? Because they were taking pictures, and then one of the pictures was, oh yeah, these children, that was during the Obama years. But see, again, you're talking about Democrats have no concept of history. If it didn't happen 3 days ago, this is their memory span. If it didn't happen 3 days ago, you can forget about it. It's basically ancient history. They like 2 weeks is like, oh my God, ancient Rome. But anyway, give me your thoughts below. I think it's great. This is the thing. Roger Stone his sentence should be commuted. Because what they tried to do was retribution. The rule of law is not predicated upon Democrats imposing or implementing retribution. That's not what the rule of law is. The rule of law states that you have to investigate a crime. If a crime has not been committed, there's nothing to investigate. There was no crime committed by President Trump. Now, if you want to say, well, the DNC emails were infiltrated, great. That is a crime, but do we have evidence that the crime occurred? Because all we have is a CrowdStrike assessment. And the United States government doesn't go after people based on the assessments of third-party tech firms that are outsourced by the DNC. And the left is disingenuous in this also. And here's how. The left, when you have a whole bunch of people and journalists who are being, exalted by the left, and rightfully so to a great extent, because they're like, oh, well, we're calling out we're calling out Russia, but they never call out the fact that Trump was set up and framed. They never use those terms because they can't possibly be defending Trump. So, anyway, give me your thoughts below. President Trump's going to win, and think of it this way: they're not going with Biden; they're going with Hillary Clinton. She's literally the only chance they have to win. And if President Trump falls into any one of their traps, which is like, getting into social media beefs, all these things, he could lose. He could lose because the media, whereas you and I might say, my God, who cares about Twitter? Like, I don't have a Twitter account. If you see anyone impersonating me, they're literally breaking the law. So report them to Twitter. But I don't have a Twitter or Facebook account. But I don't care what's like, social media is like completely irrelevant to me. Twitter will be MySpace in about 5 years. So will Facebook. But to media, that's real life. And whereas President Obama absolutely destroyed a country and obliterated a country in Libya, where now human beings are being bought and sold, but there aren't going to be portraits torn down of President Obama because of his failed NATO intervention that ruined the lives of tens of thousands in Libya. Or no, hundreds of thousands. What am I saying? Millions. Where people now are literally, according to CNN and other news sources, reputable sources, being bought and sold. But nobody will. So there's the mentality on the left is all over the place. But you had a failed NATO intervention that obliterated a country with President Obama. You had Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld did infinitely worse, along with President Obama, did infinitely worse than anything Trump has ever done. Anything Trump has ever done. Yet their contempt and the venom for Trump is unheard of. It's obscene. Give me your thoughts below. It's interesting because they're going to say, oh, the rule of law. The rule of law dictated that Roger Stone should never have been caught up in any of this because there was no evidence that he ever had anything to do with it. Simply utilizing the puffery and the grandstanding, that's not enough because they didn't find, nobody's been convicted or even, the Steele dossier was never utilized in a court of law. Why is that? Why is that? If the fact that the Steele dossier was never utilized in a court of law means that anyone swept up in this should never have been indicted online to the FBI or anything, or obstruction of justice, because there was no crime that was committed by any of these people or by Trump. It's not President Trump's fault that people read about the corruption within the DNC. Furthermore, the DNC is a private entity. It's nothing to do with national security. And then finally, they say Trump is a traitor because he worked with Russia. That's not even treason because he's not going up. Even if he did, which he didn't, that wouldn't be treason because the DNC is a private entity. It's like Democrats have zero basic reasoning skills, zero logical reasoning skills. Give me your thoughts below. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel right now. If you enjoy my voice, my Patreon is below. To my new Patreons, thank you. Be here for the live streams later tonight. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel below. Thank you.